This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the bottom feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
And welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go over when adding chemicals to a pool can backfire, some things that you don't want to do when adding chemicals, and some certain cautions when adding certain chemicals to certain pools, and just overall some ways to prevent any kind of liability when you're adding chemicals to a backyard pool. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy Coaching Program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. I'll start with this one here, and this may not be an obvious problem unless you've, of course, bleached out a vinyl liner pool before. Now, it's something that I've seen happen, and I'll take over a pool with a vinyl liner and I'll see bleach spots in there. And that's, by the way, not from liquid chlorine. That's from someone adding Cal Hypo powder directly to a vinyl liner pool. And a lot of these vinyl liner pools have these beautiful custom patterns now. They look really fancy. And if you put Cal Hypo directly on top of these surfaces, it's going to actually bleach out the liner. So again, it's not liquid chlorine when you're pouring it from the surface. It's actually anything, a granular or powdered chlorine that sits on the bottom. I wouldn't even add dichlor to a vinyl pool, even though it's pretty fast dissolving. In my opinion, it's still considered what I consider a granular or powdered chlorine, and I would avoid that. And I would definitely not add granular trichlor to a vinyl pool or even a fiberglass pool. Now, in most cases, the Cal Hypo won't damage a fiberglass pool because those are just pretty much pure white plastic. But I still would rather not dump the Cal Hypo directly in. For the vinyl and fiberglass pools, liquid chlorine is your best choice for that to prevent staining of those pool surfaces. Now, Cal Hypo is perfectly safe to broadcast in a plaster or PebbleTech pool. However, if there is any metal in the water, any copper in the water, when you dump the Cal Hypo on the bottom, there's a chance that a black stain will form immediately. This black stain, of course, will fade once the chlorine level drops down. Don't panic. It's just basically a reaction with the high oxidizer with the metals in the water. And so that's one caution against using Cal Hypo in a vinyl pool. You definitely don't want to broadcast it into the water. Trichlor tablets, because they have cyanuric acid in them, have a high potential to stain a pool surface and to damage pool equipment. So one thing you don't want to do with Cal Hypo tablets is put them directly into the skimmer. The problem with putting trichlor tablets directly into a skimmer basket is not the fact that it's going to cause any damage by dissolving in the skimmer basket. The actual damage is created when the pool turns off and you have the tablet sitting in the skimmer basket, and let's say the pool's off for 8 hours or 10 hours. As that tablet's sitting there, it's going to start to, of course, continue to dissolve in the small body of water with no water flowing over it. And what happens is when you turn the pool back on, a high concentration of very acidic water will flow through the pool plumbing, and this could damage heating components, the heat exchange. It can also leave staining coming out of the return lines. If you've ever seen this when you took over a pool, where you'll see a return line, and this is a lot more noticeable in a colored plaster pool, but you'll see a streak of, it looks like someone had poured some kind of chemical directly out of the return line onto the surface, and it's kind of bleeding down, like almost like if you see, rust bleeding into something, the stain is very similar. On white plaster, it does have a brown tint to it in some cases, and this is from that high concentration of the trichlor in the skimmer. When the pool turns back on, it shoots out and it can stain the pool surface at the return jets. I also have seen it on the main drain coming out the bottom. So when the pool turns off, the acidic water sitting in there, and some of that bleeds down into the main drain of the pool, and it'll actually etch the area around the main drain of the pool and turn it brown and discolor that area of the pool as well. So the trichlor tablets in the skimmer are something that you would want to avoid under every circumstance because of that problem. Now, if you have to put trichlor in a pool, let's say you have a salt pool on your route and the salt generator is not working, it makes sense just to throw a couple tablets in a skimmer basket for that week so that the pool has chlorine. But one thing you can do and you should do is just carry extra trichlor floaters and put those in the pool instead and put the trichlor in the floater. It's not a big deal. You can just tell the customer you have to use tablets for a while their salt system is down, or when you order a new cell or whatever. But you don't want to put them directly into the skimmer. Just buy some extra floaters and you'll have those at your disposal when you need to put tablets in the pool. And by the way, these tablets I mentioned have a high staining potential for pool surfaces. And if you put the tablets in a floater, and if the floater goes over the first step of the pool continuously or often, and this is why I recommend tying the floater to the skimmer lid so that it's always in one location. But you'll see these spots also in a pool you take over where there's like a circular discoloration on the first step of the pool. And don't think too hard and long on what this is caused by. It's caused by the chlorine floater kind of sitting and resting, sometimes directly on the surface, sometimes an inch over the surface. But if you look at the floater, you see these slits on the side that are there to let the trichlor dissolve out of the floater. And if you think about it logically, if it's sitting over that first step and there's about an inch from the bottom of the step to the bottom of the floater, that high concentration of trichlor coming out is also going to stain that area of the pool. So it is something to consider. Tie those floaters to one area. Make sure they don't go over the step area of the pool. One way to correct this, I've had a little bit of success with using Biodex Aquadex 50. You can buy a quart of it. It's a pretty good stain removing product. And so what I do, if I see that trichlor kind of circle over that first step, I'll turn the pool off and I'll take the whole quart of this product. And by the way, it will lower the chlorine level in the pool. So just be aware of the fact that it does consume the chlorine or destroy the chlorine or reacts with the chlorine, so the chlorine level drops in the pool. However you want to phrase it, the chlorine level will drop using this product. But I take the whole quart, which is an overdose. You don't need the whole quart, but I think it's very effective. I just pour the whole thing right over that spot, leave the pool off for a few hours, and then it can circulate regularly. And I've noticed that these stains lighten up quite a bit using this product. So it's pretty effective in removing some of the staining from the trichlor tablets. Now, if a trichlor tablet falls into a pool, let's say you have a floater, these floaters aren't the most long-lasting products, I should say. The bottom eventually starts to wear out, and then you'll have the tablet fall out through the bottom. The top locking mechanism tends to wear out also and break. So once the lid lock is worn out, I would recommend replacing that floater right away, because if someone uses that pool and they're in there and they're, making a lot of waves in there, the floater can tip over and the trichlor tablets can spill out. And you've probably seen these stains as well at the bottom of the pool. They're kind of like half moons, black or dark brown half moons on the bottom of the pool, about the size of a trichlor tablet actually, which means that a trichlor tablet fell to the bottom. It was on the bottom sitting there and it burned the bottom of the pool. It doesn't really make like a perfect circle. It just makes like maybe a half circle with some outer edges that are darker, but that's the trichlor burns. So trichlor tablets on the bottom of the pool are also something that can burn the plaster very easily. And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. Now, one product that I do like using for black algae or green pool cleanups, because it raises the chlorine level to astronomical levels, is HASA Algaban. This is a granular trichlor that's made specifically for algae treatment. However, and this is a big caution, however, if used incorrectly, if you let it pile up in the kind of slope or cove of the pool where the water is, where the pool sides come down to the bottom and there's a slope there, if this piles up in there, it can leave brown marks, brown stains all around the rim of the pool. So use the granular trichlor sparingly. It is really powerful. If you broadcast it in the pool, make sure it doesn't pile up in certain areas. And technically, you would want to only use this in a white plaster pool for safety reasons. You can use it in a colored plaster pool if it's older. You just have to kind of know the dosing of it. And so I suggest that if you have a pool on your route that the plaster is just shot, there's chips in it, stains, cracks, it looks terrible, go ahead and practice with that pool with some of the granular trichlor to get better at it, because you're not going to make that pool any worse. And once you kind of master it, then you can actually utilize it on your pool route. Until you master it, I would suggest not using it because it has a high potential of causing staining in the bottom of a pool. Another product that could potentially stain the bottom of the pool is dry acid. This is something that you can get at your supplier. It's basically an acid in a powdered form. It's sodium bisulfate, and it may say dry acid on the container. One thing that you need to know about dry acid, well, there's a couple things that I should mention. The first one is that if the alkalinity is really high in the pool, let's say 150, 160, you don't want to use dry acid to lower down the pH at this point, because with the high alkalinity, you're going to use a lot more of the product than necessary to lower the pH. So this is designed for pools where the alkalinity is within range, 80 to 100, maybe 120, and you can use this pretty effectively. But the higher the alkalinity, the more of this product you're going to need to lower the pH in the pool. And this, of course, is something to also know about the product, and that is it has staining properties because, again, it's an acid in dry form. So you do not want to broadcast it directly into a pool, because the fact is it is a dry acid. The granulars are going to hit the surface and they're going to stain or potentially stain the pool. Sometimes if the water temperature is really warm, like in the 80s, the staining potential is a lot less. But nonetheless, you want to dilute the dry acid with water. So get a bucket of water, fill up a 5-gallon bucket of water, then put the dry acid in there. As always, acid to water, and then just mix it up. What I do when I use it, I let it sit there after I mix it. Then I'll do all my other things around the pool, clean the pool, check the chemicals. And then as time goes by, it's still dissolving in there. And eventually you can pour it into the pool when it's fully dissolved. So it's not like you could put it in a bucket of water, stir it up and pour it in. It's not quite dissolved that quickly. So let it sit there for a while and then pour it in after a few minutes or several minutes. I don't like using this product too much because to me it's highly inconvenient. You have to dissolve it in a bucket of water every time you use it. I prefer muriatic acid over the dry acid product, but just be aware that that could cause potential staining. Speaking of muriatic acid, the only problem you're going to have with this is you don't want to use the product when there are bystanders nearby, or even the dogs that are back there around the pool area, because the fumes from the muriatic acid as you're pouring it into the pool can travel a long distance, can travel in different areas you're not aware of. And so if someone's standing on the other side of the pool and you're pouring it in, the fumes may reach them and they may start coughing and gagging. Ask me how I know this. And then the backyard pets, if you're pouring it in there and there's a dog around, the dog may start sneezing and kind of, shaking its head. Ask me how I know this. It's one of those things where you don't really know where the fumes are going. If you ever poured it in the pool in a a foggy morning where it's like really kind of foggy and misty out, you can actually see the plume of the acid gas, I guess you would call it, going in different directions, and you'll be like, wow, that's pretty cool. You can follow the cloud of acid, across the pool surface and across the yard. So yes, it may travel pretty far, and so if there's anyone in the backyard when you need to add muriatic acid to lower the pH, I would wait or sometimes even skip that. Waiting until they leave is smart. Sometimes if there's people around and they're gardening or something, then I just wouldn't put it in the pool at all that week, just to be on the safe side and to err on the side of caution. I used to use a lot of soda ash on my pool route when I wanted to raise the pH in the pool, and I really have shied away from it. There are a couple of reasons why I don't use soda ash. I actually use 20-milliliter borax in place of soda ash because it's actually more effective in raising the pH, in my opinion, without raising the alkalinity. And it's also something that's easy to broadcast in the pool, and it dissolves pretty well in the pool water, and you add borates to the pool at the same time, so it's a win-win-win. The soda ash, for me, I don't really like the fact that the dust or powder, if it gets in your eyes, is extremely hazardous to your eyes. So that's one thing I don't like about it. To me, it's kind of hard because it's really powdery and sometimes the wind's blowing, so I just don't like using it for the potential damage to your eyes. But the other reason I don't like using it is because you can overload a pool pretty easily with it, and it's hard to tell sometimes which pool is going to be overloaded with the soda ash. If you're adding like 7 pounds of it and you put it in the pool, it may not dissolve into solution, and you have this white powder all over the pool, especially in colder water when it's, or pools where they're smaller and using a lot of this product. It can't overload it. I've even overloaded the pools putting it into the skimmer. It'll shoot out the return lines just as if you poured it in the pool. So I shy away from it for those reasons. It's a messy chemical, in my opinion, to use in the pool. And I think 20-milliliter borax is much more effective anyway. And if you haven't tried 20-milliliter borax, go to Walmart or Target. In the laundry aisle, you can get a box of this. And try this in place of soda ash to raise the pH, and you'll be surprised of how effective it is. And it's actually a pretty safe product to use around the pool compared to soda ash. And I think the last one here, and it's a caution more or less than anything, is don't mix trichlor tablets and cal-hypo together, cal-hypo powder or cal-hypo tablets with any kind of trichlor product, because it actually will have a pretty explosive consequence. So let's just say that you are using trichlor, you wanted to use some cal-hypo tablets in a trichlor feeder, or offline chlorinator, I should say. Bad idea. The residue in there from the trichlor is going to cause an explosion. There's pictures on Facebook of like these things exploding or after they've exploded. So you definitely don't want to use them in the trichlor feeder, chlorine feeders. And really, the feeders don't work anyway because the cal-hypo tablets need a lot of flow to dissolve. And if you have trichlor tablets in the skimmer, which you shouldn't have, and you pour granular cal-hypo in your skimmer over the trichlor tablets, and you put the skimmer lid on, chances are the skimmer lid is going to explode up and could cause some injury to you or someone around the pool at that moment, because it is a highly explosive mix, trichlor and cal-hypo. So keep those two chemicals separate at all times. And even on your truck, I guess if you're paranoid, maybe put the trichlor on one side and the cal-hypo on the other side, far away from each other. But it's one of those things where these chemicals mixing together in water can cause an explosive reaction. And you never want to mix a bunch of chemicals in a bucket before you pour it in the pool. You don't want to put like cal-hypo in there and then maybe add some other stuff in there. Just put the chemicals in the buckets by themselves and don't mix chemicals together, because it could cause a very dangerous reaction when two chemicals are mixed together. And if you're looking for other podcasts, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, there's a podcast icon. Click on that. There'll be a drop-down menu of over 1,700 podcasts for you there. And if you're interested in the coaching program that I talked about earlier, you can learn more about it at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. the bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.